Well, PL College, how are we doing tonight? Come on. Hey, I don't know if y'all know this, but this is the last PL College of the semester, which would be really sad if we hadn't just sang what we sang with the heart in which we sang it. Because we just finished a song saying, "You can have it all, God, you can have it all." And I love that song because I think it's such a good summary of our heart and our posture this year. That for the last 12 weeks, y'all have walked into this room and said, "God, you can have it all." And whether that was relationships, whether that was different stuff that you're walking through with your friends, with your family, like you guys literally said, "Hey, God, we want you to move." And not only that, you believed it enough to take it out of this room and to see God move in some incredible ways. And so, man, tonight is not like the end of something. It is the celebration of what God has done all semester long. And so when we look at how we're going to celebrate something, man, the best way that we know how is to have some people get up and share about what the Lord's done in their lives. And so in a second, y'all are going to hear from 5 seniors. And people sometimes ask, man, how did they get selected? What did that process look like? Was it like picking the new pope? Was there smoke that came out of the Pine Lake building? And really, we do pray about who steps into this spot, but more than anything, we don't look for people who are really good public speakers necessarily or people that have gotten it right all throughout college. We look for people who are surrendered. People that at some point in their life have said, "God, I don't want my way anymore. I want your way." And they didn't go one foot in, one foot out. They said, "God, we're fully surrendered to you and who you are." And God took their story with brokenness and pain and turned it into something incredible that you're going to hear tonight. And so in a second, you're going to hear from 5 different people, but I'm going to give you a little rundown. If you've never been to one of these before, here's what we do. It's scary talking in this room. There's a lot of people. And so every time somebody comes up here, we like to hype the sin straight out of them by just standing up and clapping, not for them, but for the word from God that they're about to bring. And so we're going to do this right now in this moment. And so would you all please stand to your feet and give it up for our first speaker, Miss Skylar Andrews.
Hey everyone, I know Daniel just said my name, but if we haven't met before, my name is Skylar, and I just want to start by saying that I am extremely excited to be here tonight. I said it in the last service, I'm going to say it again. I'm really giddy. That's my favorite word. You're probably going to hear me say it a lot, so bear with me, but Pine Lake's my favorite place to be, and talking about Jesus is my favorite thing to do. So the fact that I get to stand up here and share my story with you guys over the last few years makes me extremely giddy. So before I get into it, I actually have a really random question that I want to ask you guys. It's kind of a side note of this. And if it's just a me thing, then this is going to be kind of awkward, so bear with me. But have y'all ever been sitting down and you start to look at something and everything else kind of like zones out and you're suddenly like really locked in on this thing? And like maybe it starts to move or it like gets bigger and suddenly it's like coming towards your face. It's like a weird illusion thing. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Oh, that was a good response. So I feel like for me, when I was younger, I specifically remember like looking at a window and like the blinds would start to move, and they like come towards my face, and I have to blink really fast and like get up and walk away. But when I was kind of thinking about what the Lord had been doing in my life, that example came to my mind because I feel like that's sometimes what we can do with our problems. And I know it might be a stretch, but I really do feel like there's times where we look at them and we get so focused on what's going on or what's happening right in front of us that everything else fades away and this one thing becomes our main focus. And it puts a pit in our stomach, it gives us more anxiety, we become stressed out, we put this new pressure on ourselves, and ultimately this one thing just becomes everything. And so I can't speak for everyone in this room tonight, but I can speak for myself by saying that this is something I'm extremely guilty of, especially since being in college. And from that, I kind of learned that there's a trend. And it's that we're constantly searching for stability in hopes to find some sort of security. And here's the thing. It's not that what we're aiming for is necessarily wrong. It's just the fact that we're looking in all of the wrong places. And I think as college students, we can say that we've experienced this in some form or fashion. So maybe you're a freshman and you're trying to find that perfect friend group that everybody talks about. You're willing to do anything and everything you can to make it happen, and that just becomes your main focus. Or maybe you're a sophomore and people are asking you what you're about to do with your life, and it's only year 2, and suddenly you feel like you have to have your whole career planned out. It's like your new focus. Like, how can you make this happen? You're a junior, you're a senior, it's internships, it's applications, it's one thing after another, and that doesn't even include everything that's going on in our personal lives that nobody else really sees. But the moral of the story is that there's always something that's like distracting us. And so it's pressures like these that I feel like have been teaching me a really important lesson since being in college. And honestly, it's one that I'm still learning right now. But it's the fact that the more we focus on God, the less that we're distracted by these things that cause us fear or put that pit in our stomach or add that pressure to our lives. And so honestly, while learning this lesson, because like I said, it's one that I've been having to learn for a long time. So whether I was in middle school, high school, or right now in college, there's been a constant verse that's shown me exactly what it looks like to focus my eyes on God and not on the things that bring me fear. And that verse is Psalm 16:8, and it says, "I keep my eyes always on the Lord, and with him at my right hand, I won't be shaken." So not only is this verse like a huge source of encouragement, but honestly, it's telling us about the literal strength that comes from fixing our eyes on Jesus and not on our circumstances. And so now, I know this may seem like a short verse, like I just read one sentence, but I think there's something really big in it that we sometimes miss, and something that I know I've missed for like the past probably, 10 years? And it's the fact that there's peace in it. And if we look at this verse really closely, I think we can see the different ways that the Lord is being like, hey, here's peace right here, starting with the words, "with him at my right hand." Meaning not only do we have strength in the things that we face because the Lord's watching over us when we face them, but he's willing and wanting to go through those things with us so that we don't have to do it alone. So even though this verse is one I always remembered or like wanted to keep in my back pocket, I somehow seemed to forget what it promised me because I was always locked in on something else. So for example, I would aim for something or have like a new goal that I would set for myself, and guess what? I was the one that set the goal, I made the plan, and I executed it. And I don't know if you guys can see a common theme here, but I was the problem. I was completely missing what Psalm 16:8 was focusing on, that I didn't have to do everything in my own strength, but with the strength that came from doing it or not doing it alone. And that's what I needed to set my eyes on, like the first part of the verse says. It wasn't the task, the challenge, or the pressure that I needed to be looking at, but it was who I was facing those things with. And that's when I kind of started to learn that when we set our eyes on a big God, those problems get just a little bit smaller. And ultimately, that's what I want us to focus on tonight. I don't want us to set our eyes on distractions that like cause us anxiety or give us this weird type of feeling in our stomach, but a God who literally is promising peace. But the real question is, how can we do this in our everyday life? And I know it's something that might sound like it's a lot easier said than done, but there's a couple things that seriously have helped me when trying to navigate this. And so the first one is a little bit more like literal, where I had to just cut out those distractions or just get rid of the things that were causing me like the stress or extra pressure. Now, some of you, if you're like me, you're kind of sitting there and you're like, hey, I have responsibilities, there's expectations of myself. I can't just cut these things out. Well, then it's about shifting your perspective. Because for me, that's when I learned if I got up in the morning and I thought about every single thing I had to do that day and my plan, God's purpose just got further and further in the back of my mind. But when I woke up and remembered God's purpose and remembered how this was nothing compared to what he had in store, that whole entire day looked different just because of a switch that I flipped in my mind when I first woke up. So for me, it became completely rearranging my schedule and creating time to focus on Jesus. And because honestly, those things in our schedule or those like things that are causing us this fear or this anxiety, they're honestly just distractions that keep us from focusing on or even having a relationship with Jesus. And so tonight, I have a couple questions that I want to ask you guys. What would it look like if we took our mind off of these distractions and focused it on Jesus? And instead of being so focused on finding the right people, we can remind ourselves that there's a God who already has a plan and a purpose for us. And instead of being so stressed out about figuring out our lives and what we need to do next, we can remember that there's a God who created us and loves us and already has that figured out for us. And then lastly, instead of being so worried about the next thing, we can focus on what God is literally doing right in front of us. Whether you're a believer and the Lord's been trying to teach you something for a really long time and you've just been missing it because you've been focused on something else, or maybe you don't know Jesus at all and he brought you into this room tonight so that you could meet him for the first time. So when this verse says, with him at my right hand, I will not be shaken, to me that's not only saying that God's greater than what I face, but that he's with me when I face it. But I'll be real with you guys. I'm not going to say that that means I'll never be nervous or I'll never be stressed and overwhelmed and like get all frazzled. But it does mean that there's a way to find peace when I am. And that's what I want to offer y'all tonight. So with that being said, my name is Skylar, and that was my 5 for 5. Let's go, Alex.
What's up, guys? I'm Alex, and first of all, I just want to be honest with y'all. I've actually overcome an addiction. And no, it's probably not the addiction you're thinking of. I've actually overcome a Fortnite addiction. From the end of my 8th grade year up until the middle of my sophomore year, I played way too much Fortnite. I wouldn't get it from school, get it from basketball practice, and I couldn't wait to hop on the game. And when it came to the weekends, I couldn't wait to play even more. And eventually, after a couple of months of this, my parents sat me down and they said, look, Alex, you're playing way too much Fortnite. And in that moment, I didn't listen. Fortnite was something that gave me joy. It gave me happiness, stability, and so I kept playing. And then finally, my sophomore year, the scales fell off my eyes and I realized, yep, I've been playing way too much Fortnite. And because of that, guys, no, seriously, I missed out. I missed out on a lot of things. I missed out on becoming the best athlete I could have been, the best basketball player I could have been. I missed out on making the best grades I should have made. And I really missed out on pouring into relationships. I mean, I was even telling my friend DJ last service, I could have probably mastered the guitar with all that time and made a 4.0, but I didn't. So the reason I'm telling you this story is because I believe we're all very self-reliant. In fact, way too self-reliant. We all think we know more than we actually do. And we even think we know more than God. But if we're not careful, this way of life is going to drown us in sin, and it's going to lead us to destruction. A verse that stuck out to me in my time in college is Mark 8:34. And calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Now, what this verse means to me is to follow Jesus means surrendering your own desires, walking in obedience to his word, and trusting that walking in obedience to his word brings the most joyful and fulfilled life we can possibly have, not only in heaven, but here on this earth. Now, when I got to Ole Miss, I was tired of being under the rule of other people. I was tired of being under the rule of Christian school, my parents, my coaches, and I was ready to live for my own kingdom, my kingdom of one. And so I did. And the first 6 to 8 months of college, I did whatever I wanted. And at the end of my freshman year, I found myself deeply insecure, with an extreme fear of man, and at the absolute end of myself. Now, I didn't know at that time, but that end of myself feeling was actually the best thing that could have ever possibly happened to me. Because at that bottom, I found Jesus. And when I found Jesus, I knew I had a choice. It was time to keep living for my kingdom of one, or live for a kingdom that was way bigger than mine. And so I started going to church, and every Tuesday and every Sunday, I got a little more convicted. And finally, it was time for me to pick up my own cross. And so I did. And that fear of man I was telling you all about, it turned into a fear and understanding of God. That the same God who parted seas, raised men from the dead, and loved me to the point of death on a cross, lived inside of me. Now, guys, when I started understanding that, I started to walk different. Walk with confidence, knowing who and whose I was. I started to understand Jesus, that I had joy, I had authority, I had confidence all through him, and it completely changed my life. That insecurity, it turned to security, and I knew who I was and who I was meant to be. I started to live for a way bigger purpose than I was living. I started to live for a kingdom that was way bigger than mine. And so, guys, in order to do this, we got to do a couple things. The first thing is that we can't do this by ourselves. we have to ask God to change our hearts, to give us the ability to go and make this big life change, to walk this narrow road, to live counterculturally at Ole Miss. Because, guys, it's not easy to go and be a Christian at Ole Miss. There's a lot of temptation here, and we can't do it alone. So we got to ask for community, for guys and girls to build us up, to uphold us, to hold us accountable and encourage us when we're not feeling our best. The days when we wake up and we feel like we can't do this, we can't walk as a Christian, we want to go back to our old ways, we need those people to say, hey, there's a bigger purpose for our life. Now, guys, I don't want to act like it's always easy, but if there's one thing I really want to share with y'all that the Lord has shown me through my story, is that there is blessing on the other side of obedience. My name is Alex Holmes, and this is my 5 for 5.
Hey y'all, my name is Crosby, and I'm so excited to be here with y'all tonight. But first, I have a question. So if any of y'all had to take a bio lab here at Ole Miss, I know for me, I had to take bio lab and lecture freshman year, and I'm talking like baby bio, not BISC 160. So it should have been easy, but I remember sitting there with my group, and we have all the things. We have the clickers and the lab manual and all these things I've never seen before, and I'm sitting there, and I quickly realized that everyone in my group has something to do. They all have a role or a task but me. And I also realized that I'm the friend in the group that no one likes because I had nothing to do. And I know this is such a small situation, but if we were being honest, I think there's been a time when each of us have had that feeling before. We all desire to feel like we have a purpose and feel like our lives hold some sort of value. And because we have this desire, I think it's easy for us to reach for things of this world to create our own desire rather than searching for the purpose that God has for us. And searching things of this world could look like finding your worth in a relationship, in a friendship, in trying to uphold an image, or trying to build out a resume. But ultimately, all of these things will fade away one day, and they're never going to satisfy us the way we want them to. In Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." And so while I was doing some research on this verse, I found out that the word created meant to completely transform or change. And y'all, I thought this was so cool because my initial thought was, I'm sure the word created means to just make something. But it's so much more than that. He created us so that we could experience this complete transformation. And we experience complete transformation when Jesus takes us from death to life. And he doesn't just craft us together and leave us sitting, but he crafted each of us with purpose in mind, and he loves us enough to radically work in our lives every single day. And if we want to actively walk out God's purpose for our lives, then it's important that we remember that the love of God that saves us is the same love of God that's changing us. And if you're anything like me, I spent a lot of my time in college striving to find my purpose. I would go from thing to thing, trying to figure out why I was even here. And the first place I started was sorority life. And I remember thinking, like, hey, the minute I can put Ole Miss Katie in my Instagram bio, that life would be good. And it wasn't. But I found myself putting so much identity into these two letters, just hoping, like, hey, this is what's going to satisfy me. And so when that didn't satisfy me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put in something else. And I was like, I'm going to go be an ambassador, and I'm going to try and build a really good resume. And so I did that. I did the ambassador thing, and I worked on building a really good resume. And I was building this good resume to hopefully get a good job. Well, the job that I was hoping to get wasn't really because I cared about marketing or IMC, but it was more so because I wanted the affirmation from other people. I wanted people to look at me and say, hey, she got that, she did that. And when I realized that I wasn't going to find that affirmation in all these things that was going to satisfy me, I had to realize that the only place I was going to find true fulfillment and satisfaction was just in Jesus. And I wanted so badly to have both, but having both meant Jesus was never going to have all of me, and I was never going to be able to experience the fullness of his love. And I think the minute I realized that my purpose was not all about building Crosby's kingdom, I was able to see and understand that my purpose here was to know God and make his name known, rather than making my own name known. In order to do this, I had to live a life that was a reflection of a gospel, rather than living a life that looked really good to all of the right people. And what I mean by this is, I had gotten really comfortable with going to church with my church friends and turning around the next day and going out with my other friends. And I saw the Lord strip some labels and titles away from me, which was really hard. But because I no longer had Katie attached to my name or ambassadors attached to my name or this reputation that I was trying to uphold attached to my name, the only thing I had left beside my name was that I am Crosby and I'm a daughter of the King. And that's exactly what he has for you guys tonight. And I know for me, something that I've had to do recently to kind of move my eyes has been deleting Instagram. And this was something that was consuming my mind. I could look on my Explore page and scroll and scroll and scroll, and it was nothing but engagement photos and workout videos and healthy recipes, and all these things that constantly consumed my mind were the exact same things that I was feeding myself with. And so that was something that I had to cut out. And so I think a question you can ask yourself tonight is, where are you finding your purpose? Where are you finding your worth? What title, what accomplishment, what person are you letting define your purpose and identity? And Ephesians 2:10 tells us that we are created in Christ Jesus and that our purpose should be found in simply being a child of his. All he wants from us is to come and rest in his presence. We don't have to build a successful resume. We don't have to be the person that can do all the things. But all he wants from us is to sit and know that we are a child of his. So if you're going to put your everything into something, put your everything into Jesus. I promise you it'll be worth it. My name's Crosby, and this is my 5 for 5.
Man, what is up, guys? If we have not met yet, my name is Logan Kelley, and I'm just super excited to be here tonight and share a little bit about what the Lord has put on my heart. But first, I got a question for y'all. Have y'all ever been driving somewhere, okay? And this could be somewhere you've been a million times or somewhere you're going for the first time, and you kind of want to check the maps, make sure you're going the right direction, or maybe you got the fastest route. So you're looking at maps, and you're put the destination in, and you're like, man, this looks kind of weird, or maybe I know a faster way. So you're like, you know what, whatever, bro, I got this. Throw your phone into the passenger seat, put your car in drive, and you're going. You're going to your destination. You're going, and then you turn left on the freeway, and you realize you just made the biggest mistake of your life because now you're in standstill traffic, and there's a crash up ahead. And what you realize is that the GPS, the original route in the GPS was meant to avoid that crash. Man, now you're just standing in traffic and you're on the road way longer than you were planning to. And sometimes I think that this is how we treat our faith and obedience to the Lord. Man, we want so much control over our life, or in other words, we want to be the Lord of our life, that we forget that surrender is the best thing that we can do. Man, the Lord might be calling you one way, or the Holy Spirit is nudging you to do something. And your first response deep down is, Lord, this doesn't make sense. Like, why are you calling me to do this? Or Lord, I know exactly what to do in this situation, so why would I listen to that? But in truth, we need to choose obedience even when it doesn't make sense. Man, in Luke 5:5, we get to see a really cool story of Peter and Jesus meeting for one of the first times and interacting. And Peter gets the opportunity to do just this. Man, in Luke 5:5, it says, "And Simon answered, 'Master, we've toiled and worked all night and took nothing. But at your word, I will let down the nets.'" Man, in this story, Peter had been fishing all night, and he's trying to provide for his family, so you can imagine just how frantic he was when he caught nothing. And as we know, Jesus is a carpenter at the time, so Peter really could have responded in so many ways. He could have been like, well, Jesus, I'm a fisherman. I think I know when to fish. You're a carpenter. Or maybe this isn't the right time to fish. We're not going to catch anything. I mean, we've been fishing all night, so why would I let down my nets now? But instead, Peter just responds with so much surrender and humility, and he just says, "Master, at your word, I will let down the nets." Now, you might be asking yourself, what exactly does it look like to have surrender and humility when it comes to obedience? So I'd like to share a little bit of my story just to hopefully shed some light on that. Man, growing up, sports was my whole life. For most of it, did gymnastics, and when I got to high school, I started to do pole vault. It was all I knew and all I was known for, and I'm really blessed to be able to do it now in college. But for the first 2 years of my college career, it really consumed me. It really became this identity for me. It controlled my actions, my thoughts, my feelings. And what I found towards the end of my sophomore year, man, the Lord was calling me not necessarily to quit pole vault, but that it wasn't my calling anymore. I was so sure that the Lord was calling me to do these amazing things, go to the Olympics and do all these things, but in reality, that wasn't the case. And my first initial thought was, Lord, why are you calling me away from this? Man, I thought we were good. I thought this is what we were doing. But that wasn't the case at all. Man, it was the one thing I thought I had true control over, and I wasn't just understanding why. Man, long story short, through some really deep prayer and time with the Lord, I learned to surrender the calling of my life and also the outcome of my calling that the Lord is calling me to. Man, it wasn't easy and a little painful at times, but what the Lord did with that surrender, words cannot even describe. Man, he blesses blind obedience, and the Lord, it doesn't go unnoticed in the Lord's eyes. All God is looking for is your yes. And I understand and I realize that is a lot easier said than done. Man, I want to jump back to Peter's story. We see later that because Peter had responded out of this surrender and humility, the Lord blesses him abundantly with more fish than he can count. And the Lord even changes his calling from catching fish to catching people for the sake of the gospel. Now, again, this is a lot easier said than done, and it's not just going to be an overnight fix or a snap of a finger, so I think the question tonight is, what can we do about that? Man, for some of us, it's setting an alarm every morning, arms open wide, in a posture of surrender and saying, Lord, humble me, make your ways known to me. Man, for some of us, you know what the Lord's calling you to, and the next step is just to give him your yes. Start with something small, and what you'll start to see is that your will and the Lord's will for your life start to align. Man, this could look as simple as maybe God's calling you out of a relationship. This could be a toxic friendship or a toxic relationship with a significant other. Maybe you're feeling convicted about what you're doing on the weekends. And the next step of obedience for you is setting a boundary for yourself and saying, Lord, you know what? No, I'm not going to go there this weekend. I'm not going to go do that. This isn't just something we do out of behavior modification, but rather from a heart transformation. And that heart transformation comes from spending time with the Lord in worship and prayer and through his word. And what you'll start to notice is as you're doing these things, you'll start to recognize the Lord's voice. And when you do that, man, the Lord calling you to obedience doesn't become easier. It just becomes that much more clear. My name's Logan, and this is my 5 for 5.
Hey y'all, my name is Sydney Avery, if we haven't had the chance to meet. And before anything, I just want to say that I'm really excited, honestly, genuinely, to be here and to be able to share one of the many things that the Lord has walked me through with my time here. But first, I want to tell you guys about a story. So the other day I was reading, and in this chapter, I came across a guy who had found himself in a field of strawberries. And while he was there, in the field, frolicking, doing whatever you do there, he started to just pick some strawberries off the vine, put them in his basket, and then he was like, you know what, I'm going to try one of these. And so he went and he grabbed one of the strawberries, and as he bit into the first strawberry, he kind of became like wide-eyed, and he had this realization that he had never actually tasted the real thing before. His whole life, store-bought strawberries seemed to be the best there was, or even all there was, until he had tasted and seen the goodness of a real one straight from the source. And for the Lord's love, y'all, that was me for so long. I settled for this superficial and mediocre love until I had tasted and seen the goodness and the fullness of our Creator's love. We're created with this longing for God, but when we try and fill that longing and that void with anything but Him, anything but the real thing, we're left empty and with hard hearts. And the reason that we don't find love and fulfillment and joy and all these things in the people and the places that we're searching for is because we've hardened our hearts to the only real source of love that will ever truly satisfy us. But I need to tell you guys tonight that the Lord wants to meet you with a new heart and a new spirit, one filled with love and an abundance of joy and of peace. And one verse that really stuck with me through this time and just shows such the heart of our good Father is Ezekiel 36:26, which says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. As humans, we have this innate desire to be wanted, to be seen and loved, and to fit in and be fulfilled. And these aren't necessarily bad things, but when I didn't realize or even accept that I could find all of this and more in Jesus, I searched for it in all the wrong avenues, whether it was hookups that looked promising on the outside, but left me with just a loneliness that I had never felt before. Or I had this roster, which we all know what I'm talking about, that if it wasn't satisfaction from one and fulfillment, it was on to the next, and it was this constant cycle of taking and taking selfishly. And my heart became hardened and selfish and cold and unresponsive, and I was being unkind to those who loved me, and I would hurt people and not think twice about it. And all of this and a lot more just left me with a heart of stone, like the verse says in Ezekiel. And the thing about a heart of stone, y'all, is that it's heavy, and it's a burden to carry, and it's a burden that we were never, ever meant to even carry. And through this, I learned two things about desire. One, that being desired in human terms often means being wanted in order to give something, being wanted for what you can give. But in Christ, being desired means being wanted in order to be given new life and a new heart and a new spirit. I was so desperate for fulfillment and this longing for love and so much more, and I was told I could find all that in this guy named Jesus. And up until that point, I had been drinking from a very promising but very empty well. And I had found myself at rock bottom. I was anxious. I woke up every day with such anxiety. I was lonely. I was bitter. And I just had this hatred for things and for people around me. And it wasn't because I had made myself clean or good or I had picked up the pieces, but I went all in with Jesus because I had nowhere else to go. I had nowhere else to go. And because of who He is and what He's done for me on the cross is the reason I could do that. And for the first time in my life, this new heart and this new spirit wasn't something that I had to strive for like everything else. It wasn't something that I had to pick up the broken pieces. I had to manipulate situations or people in order to get it. It was a gift. It's not transactional. All He wants is our surrender and our yes to Him. He was telling me, quit trying to pick up the broken, chipped off pieces of your heart of stone, your heart of your bad relationships and your bad reputation. Leave that all behind and come follow me. Come see and taste the goodness that I have for you. I have a gift for you, and it's waiting to be received. So tonight, maybe that's stepping away from something that has hardened your heart, and you know what it is. Maybe it's asking the Lord, what is my next step? And when He tells you and He gives you that nudge, y'all, take the step. Be obedient to the step. The Lord delights in blind obedience. He knows that you don't know the next step, but taking it anyways delights in Him. Maybe it's just stepping away from those friends that are the do-it-for-the-plot friends, the friends that take you down a path of sin and not of righteousness. Or y'all, if we're being honest, it's deciding to not be that friend anymore and not to lead those people down that path. Whatever it is, be obedient with it and listen to the Lord's calling on your life. He's sitting there and He's waiting for you to come and receive this gift that He has for you. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to make yourself clean or good enough to come to Him. So tonight, come taste and see the goodness and the faithfulness of our Creator. Come taste and see the real thing straight from the source. Y'all, if something tonight that was said by the 5 of us brought a stirring inside of you, or you have questions, or you need to surrender something to someone, y'all, we're going to have people down here in a second that would love to pray over you, pray for you, pray with you. The 5 of us would love to talk to you about anything you're going through. The devil's favorite thing to do is make you feel like you're alone in this, and I promise you, you're not. I promise you there's people who want to come around you and come alongside you and walk through this with you. Do not leave this room this semester without taking that next step. Take it obediently. Do not let pride and fear get in the way of the Lord's calling on your life. With that, would y'all pray with me? God, I thank you for giving the 5 of us this platform to come and to glorify you. God, I pray that the people in this room tonight did not see us, but they saw you through us, Lord. I pray for the person in the room tonight, God, that is scared to leave their seat to come get prayer because they're afraid of what the people next to them might think. God, I pray that you strip us of our pride and you humble us, and you pray that you just let us come down and talk to someone, or even if it's just sitting at the altar with our knees kneeled down to you, God, with our hands open wide, a posture of surrender, but also a posture of receiving, God. We thank you. You're a good, good Father, Lord, and we need you. We are sinners in desperate need of a Savior, and that is what you provide us, God. We thank you and we praise you, and in your name, amen. Y'all can stand with us.